relations, marketing, and social media in healthcare requires making the right moves at the right time. Welcome to the Overrated and Underused show. Here's your hosts, experienced marketers Jen Jennings and Tom Testa, with special guest Adrian Stoner. Overrated and Underused, the Overrated and Underused show.
Welcome everyone to ONU Radio. I'm Tom, along with Jen, as we are every month here on ONU Radio. And Jen, welcome back. Last month, you were at a certain live event. I mean, we've talked about it several times throughout the year. So how was it?
Yes. We intended this actual episode we weren't really going to talk about doing a recap of Himss. But, as this is one of the first, or it was the first that I've attended, but one of the first back to in-person conferences kind of in our industry. So Everybody, we've been getting questions on how was it? How did it go? Was it what you expected? Are you glad you went? Like all the questions. So I think instead of doing the content we planned for this month, we're going to save that for next month.
Yep.
And we're just going to do a little Himss recap. And then we have a brand new segment for you all that I think everyone is going to enjoy. So we'll kind of introduce that later in the show. But yeah, let's dive right into it.
Himss is probably the first major large industry event that was live. I mean, it was still a hybrid because there were a lot of folks who took part in the online version, the virtual version as well. But Himss certainly was the first big live in-person event. And then, of course, the rest will follow. It looks like, we're looking forward to hearing, your insights because you were on the ground. I unfortunately was not there with you, as sad as that is, newborn baby and all. So it'd be great to hear your take on what you saw. And again, maybe what we might expect for a very short turnaround with Himss 22, in March 2022.
Yeah. So, I know on our show, we typically talk about Himss a lot. We bring up other conferences, but that's really just because they're so important to health IT marketing. I think event marketing, connecting with customers, partners, prospective customers in person, really kind of being on the ground, that networking. It's just been such a prominent force and part of, marketing. And so the absence of it, I think, was really felt across the industry, across a lot of industries, not just healthcare IT, but it's just been such a big part of, our professional lives for so many years. So we've talked about it, in several episodes throughout our shows, but getting back to the in-person, I think my takeaway was that certainly it was a much different event than in the past, but I think that's to be expected. We couldn't have, the 50,000 Himss attendees, shoulder to shoulder in the same place and still maintain the social distancing and all of the requirements that kind of like make people feel safe and people want to attend a conference like this in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. But, I think Himss, honestly, it was a different show. It was a much quieter show. Like the show floor was certainly not what it normally is. I think there was, just from the exhibitor standpoint, about half the normal exhibitors. There was just over 700, and there's typically 1,400 to 1,500. So a lot of the big names were still there. Epic and several others, still had their same large booth presences, that they had 2 years ago. But, there were a lot that kind of dropped out or, never signed up to begin with after, 2020. Or they instead of the booth presence, they shifted to kind of walking the show floor or having just a meeting room space only for scheduled meetings on site and not doing the normal scenario. So our agency actually we had 4 people on site.
Yep.
We had 4 clients on site. We did, everything from kind of booth setup, tear down, press interviews, radio show interviews, our own radio show recordings on site, and a lot of logistical support for sales meetings and promotion and coverage and live tweeting, like the whole spectrum of it. We still had a lot to do. Like, even though I say this was a much quieter show, it probably was one of our busier shows from our standpoint, but, we typically have more clients exhibiting and we bring more of our agency. So
Let me ask you this, Jen. So obviously you were walking the floor and there was probably more time to do a little bit more chatter, even with your peers. What were they saying about, our take is one thing, not that speaking to, half dozen represents every vendor there, of course, exhibitor, but what were you kind of hearing from our peers?
We talked to probably, 50 plus exhibitors ourselves. And,
Yep.
I don't have a definitive answer because the reaction was pretty mixed. It was, a lot complained that the show was quiet. There wasn't a lot of foot traffic or attendee traffic, or that it was, mostly exhibitors talking to other exhibitors, but there was a lot that were positive. Traffic was down, but that it gave them the opportunity to have some good conversations, and, thought the people who did show up were actually more serious buyers.
Oh, I see. So the conversations they were having were a little bit more, I guess, on point, because these folks that were taking the time to come over and have conversations with exhibitors were probably genuinely interested. Maybe those conversations were a lot more meaningful because also people were probably thirsty to finally get to have these conversations in person. So they weren't maybe there for the chit chat as much as really to get down to business, unlike most years potentially.
I think definitely. I think the people that were there obviously recognized that it was a very different event, much quieter. A third of the in-person attendees is normal. But I think a lot of them were thankful for Himss, for having this show, for putting on this show and putting in the proper protocols, the vaccination mandate and the last minute mask mandate. I think it just made people think twice about, should I be going to this event? Obviously, that's a tough decision, personal decision for everybody, but I think Himss did the best job that they could, during such a tough time. And there's no perfect answer. I think everybody's just trying to figure it out and, move forward in the safest but still viable business model that they can. So,
Yep. Like you said, Himss, you were there, and your firsthand experience certainly is valuable in saying that Himss did a very good job at pulling this off, at a time where I think a lot of folks they look at Himss. Himss is a leader, of course, an industry leader. And, they've had this event going on for so long that I think to see them, come through and pull off an event where, again, knock on wood, everything seemed to go perfectly well from a public health standpoint, it sounds like, to also, what vendors and exhibitors and attendees that were there wanted to get out of it. So it didn't sound like there's going to be many thumbs down. I mean, certainly you're going to see some people who probably came away and said, oh, I'm just used to the old Himss and I just wish it was that. And it's not. And that's okay if they're comparing it to what Himss normally is. And we'll get there again. I don't think that's an issue, maybe as early as 2022. The industry will be back and Himss will be as strong, if not stronger than ever. But one group of folks I want to pick your brain on too is, what about the media attendance? This is something even from where I was, even, back at home base, I was still trying to pitch the media, of course, and, having my public relations hat on for our clients that you had on the ground there. And we certainly had some decent interactions with the press. But overall, did you get the sense that, media and analyst attendee numbers were maybe a bit down since they could watch things virtually?
Yeah, definitely. I think, the media representation was a fraction of what it, normally is. There was a small list of attending press. And then even with that, many dropped out late in the game or only attended virtually, once all the content was kind of made virtually to them. I know there was, at least one press party that was canceled because of poor attendance.
Yep.
And even in the press room, it was kind of empty, basically empty, other than just, there was a few people in it. But I think it's just a matter of scaling back, just like our agency, scaled back the staff that we have. I think, the justification for them being there in person, or sending the normal 4 reporters that they normally would, versus maybe just one person goes and checks it out and, it's kind of ears on the ground. So yeah, it was definitely much quieter. It was a quieter Himss, not as chaotic Himss. I have pictures of the show floor from every year prior to, this year. And it's you're shoulder to shoulder and everybody is just rushing through. You can't look down at your phone for a second because you're going to bump into somebody. Right, and that was just truly not the case. They did a good job, spacing things out. It was still the same space, but it was quieter, but I think we've got to ease our way back into it. If it were the shoulder to shoulder that it was, then I think, there may have been more of a public health concern or, something like that. So I think it was almost just that just right kind of medium. So,
yep. I mean, again, it sounds like kudos to Himss for pulling off a rather successful show given the circumstances. I mean, like you said, you heard positive things from vendors and then also from our own clients too, who were there and had positive things to say about the Himss experience this year. So looking forward to a non-pandemic Himss. And like we said, they will be there, but it's great. And it's great. And the other benefit that we're going to be sharing with listeners later is you got the opportunity to actually sit down with some great marketers at Himss and interview one in particular that will be airing in a little bit. So again, a lot of great things came out of this Himss, that's for sure.
Yes, and you will not have to wait long, only 8 short months to experience Himss 2022. Looking forward to seeing MGMA and slowly going back into these in-person events because, we as a society we've got to figure out, what's the right balance of getting back to what we would call a normal life. If you are just tuning in, you're listening to Overrated and Underused on Healthcare Now Radio. Today's episode is our Himss 21 recap and our guest marketer interview with the promotional brains behind Inmar Intelligence.
Outside Insights.
All right, Jen. So it's time for actually a new segment here on ONU Radio. It's a brand new segment we like to call Outside Insights. Now, it's kind of a put our ego in check kind of segment. Oh no, especially you. We've got all the answers here, right, Jen? I mean, but now we're going to be turning to those outside the industry.
I guess it's fine to ask other people what they think too, but at the end of the day, we know that our opinions matter the most.
We hope. So we hope.
Just kidding.
So we hope.
So no, I'm excited about this. I think it's great. So with this new Outside Insights, we'll be talking to some of the top health IT marketing experts from the corporate world, agencies, health IT vendors, really just so we can talk about new perspectives and what they think and what other people are thinking are overrated and underused when it comes to health IT marketing and PR.
Yeah, you're right. Because it is. It's look, all kidding aside, tapping into outside marketers is extremely important. And I think as much as it's great that, we offer some insights that we obviously feel are unique, tapping these other outside marketers is going to be a great way to get some exposure to our listeners to some of the other bright ideas that are going on out there. So if you are listening to this radio show and you are a health IT or even a clinical healthcare marketer, Jen and I would love to hear your perspectives too for future Outside Insight segments. So if you want to join us for 10 minutes on a future episode, you can share anecdotes or promotional campaigns for your organization, or even describe what marketing tactics you see as overrated and underused. Please reach out to us at info@andersoni.com. Jen, I would love to hear from you. So this is just our inaugural Outside Insights interview, and we hope one of many.
So our first guest is Lari Harding of Inmar Intelligence. Inmar is not a client of ours. We love all our clients, but we wanted to, for this first one, tap into external perspectives and start off with a prominent Himss exhibitor. So this is the last day of the Himss conference, and here is my interview with Lari.
All right, welcome to Overrated and Underused. I'm your host, Jen Jennings, and I'm coming to you live at Himss 21. Everyone's second favorite co-host, Tom Testo, is not able to join us today, but never fear, we'll use this time to introduce marketing experts from healthcare and healthcare IT. Thank you for joining our show today, Lari. It's great to meet you. Can you give us a quick background on Inmar Intelligence?
Sure, happy to do so. Inmar's been in business now for 41 years, and we are a data platform company. And we really operate 4 different data platforms. One is our healthcare cloud, and its platform is about drug sync. And we are helping all of the different entities in the industry manage the drug supply chain and all of the different data related to that. And then we have a retail cloud, which manages the same type of thing around the shopper for retailers and consumer packaged goods companies, a fintech cloud that has a ledger sync that's all about financial transactions, and then a supply chain cloud, which is managing product data throughout the supply chain. So we like to use these platforms to help our clients and be their trusted intermediary for solving some of their very important business problems.
Great. Now that sounds exciting. So we're on day 3 of a very unique Himss. How has the show gone for you? And was it what you expected, or what were some kind of takeaways?
Well, definitely, there are less people here than there have been at previous Himss. I want to congratulate Himss for moving forward with this and, really trying hard to get people out there, because trade shows and events for Inmar have always been a really important part of how we market ourselves, because you get to meet people that you might not otherwise meet and have some really, really important conversations. And we've gotten to do that here this week. The volume of people is a little bit disappointing, I think, for some of the vendors.
Sure.
But hopefully people will stick in there, and trade shows can survive and come back as a great vehicle.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like, obviously the volume is less, but it's awesome to hear that you're still having some quality conversations, and certainly there's still people here. There's still the needs in the market, and so I'm glad to see that we are back to at least one in-person event. So what really kind of attracted our show's producers to Inmar and wanting to talk with you today was the strong press outreach and thought leadership presence that you share with our industry. So can you tell us a little bit about that and why, spending marketing resources focused there has been so important to Inmar?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have 15,000 clients,
Oh, wow.
A lot of clients. But, as I mentioned, we have these 4 different data platforms, and inevitably we would get into conversations with clients and they would say, oh, I didn't know that Inmar did that. And, we're a big believer in listening to our clients' problems, and sometimes we're mashing up, assets that we have to create new solutions. And so we found that, PR and thought leadership and really getting it out there was a great tactic for all of our clients, and as well as the industry, to have a much better understanding of all of our capabilities. And in addition to that, I think another benefit of it is that other companies have been exposed to this information, and we've developed an innovation ecosystem partnership arrangement with lots of other companies that come into our platform, and we're accelerating each other. And the outcome is better for our clients because they're getting something much faster than they would have been if we weren't working together.
Right.
And then probably the third really great benefit of it is that content becomes an outstanding form of lead generation for our sales team. So, those little pieces of thought leadership and PR that are all out there are a great way to strike up a new conversation with a new person. And so it's been very successful for us.
Right. So, kind of in keeping with our show's theme, would you say this is underused by others in healthcare, or the thought leadership and the content marketing?
I would say with publicly held companies, you see a lot of it because it's very important for them to be getting their message out there because their investors are people out there, trading their stock every day. I think for privately held companies, it's underused.
Underused.
Because it can be really, really powerful if you get that engine going and you get more and more people talking about you and really rising to the surface those things that differentiate you. I mean, look at how many companies are here and how many times you see transforming the business of healthcare or AI, and you've really got to be able to draw more out of that and differentiate yourself.
Right. No, I absolutely agree. So let's talk about other aspects of marketing. Like there's, a variety of ways that health IT marketers can, spend their time and their resources and their budgets. What PR marketing, social media tactics do you find are overrated for Inmar, or ones that you've had the experience in the past and they just didn't work, or it's just not a focus for you?
Well, I think, 2020 changed the way the world works. We had very close partnerships with a lot of trade publications, that really had an audience with, the customer set in that particular area. And what we found is if they hadn't really already developed their digital presence and their digital following, that those things were just not working for us, because people weren't in their office to receive that trade publication, or they weren't at an event to pick it up and review it. So I think we put more energy focusing on those groups that had already developed a digital audience that we could leverage and partner with. And so I think it's very much about those types of channels. And I think, people consume information differently. It's smaller, insightful things versus, monolithic pieces of content. And so we've kind of had to adjust the way we do that. I will say that events and trade shows have always been a big tactic for us, and we've grown our businesses making relationships that way. So we are hopeful that they come back, and we've experimented some with the virtual, and it's not the same.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, we've actually done, entire episodes talking about virtual events and in-person events and the differences, and because even in a virtual environment, like no single virtual event is the same. There's so many ways they can put them on. There you can have virtual booths. It can be a whole virtual reality experience where you're walking up, or it can, be as simple as you have a listing on a, company event website, and it's, they can request a Zoom meeting with you if they want to. Or, there are some virtual events don't have, the exhibitor presence. It's more just single sponsorships or educational content. So I do think, obviously, like you said, 2020 has forced everybody to reevaluate what they've done in the past and what they're looking to do in the future, and not just do the same thing because that's what they've done for years. So really kind of looking at, well, does this make the most sense? Does this make the most sense for now? Does it make the most sense for us in a year from now? So I think across the board, that's definitely the case. Well, thank you, Lari. This is so interesting. It was wonderful to talk to you, and wish you all the best in your future in-person, fingers crossed events.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks to Lari and our listeners for joining us today. We are sponsored by Anderson Interactive and can be heard weekdays at 10 a.m., 6 p.m., 2 a.m. Eastern on Healthcare Now Radio. You can email your inbox with Adrian questions to hello@andersoni, that's the letter I.com, or you can tweet us at Jen_Jennings, Tom_Testa, or Adrian_Stoner. Please make sure you always use the hashtag #OverUnderRadio. Thanks, everyone, and be well.
Hey there. I know you're used to hearing that Overrated and Underused is sponsored by Anderson Interactive, but we don't often get to share about this fantastic agency itself. But today is your lucky day. We're going to take a quick dive into the world of Anderson Interactive so you can see who we are and what we can do for you. Anderson Interactive is an award-winning, healthcare-recognized media-requested agency. Our firm blends public relations tactics and marketing innovations with social media expertise while adding in a heavy dose of digital, broadcast, and interactive communication strategies to advance the brands of emerging and leading healthcare and health IT organizations. We leverage our knowledge and relationships to get clients of all sizes in front of the right audiences with the right messages to drive impactful and lasting results. Our talented team of seasoned professionals are creative, natural-born storytellers who are ready to take on the toughest challenges and help you shine. We understand the nature of public relations and marketing communications is constantly evolving, and know it takes a unique perspective to change the landscape of healthcare. It's crucial that you partner with an agency that has a deep-rooted understanding of the industry in which you operate. We live and breathe healthcare concepts, so let us step in and take the wheel. Have questions or more information about our services? Be sure to visit us at andersoni.com or reach out by phone or email today. We can't wait to hear from you.
Thanks for listening to the Overrated and Underused show with your hosts, experienced marketers Jen Jennings and Tom Testa, and special guest Adrian Stoner. Over